Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Ice and Fire event in which the Snowly Owlbear is added to the game. We also ended up getting a new legendary troop that's in the event key drop table, and we have a relatively interesting event key drop table as well this week, aside from just that new legend, which we'll be going over in a moment. But let's start from the top and go over the new glory troop. Comes in with a decent amount of brown and blue. You'll be able to get them for 300 each. As far as the troop itself, ends up dealing damage to an enemy and then freezes them. And if its attack is greater, it'll enrage itself. Otherwise, it'll eliminate their armor or their attack by 10, basically meaning that it'll have a better capability of reaching its other condition. I really like the premise of this kind of troop. Unfortunately, it is pretty much going to be useless in every situation except for arena, where it is going to be ridiculously broken. But aside from that, outside of arena, it's going to be pretty average. Don't really foresee really using it. Traits are okay, as immune to freeze, has a little bit of score reduction, the worst score reduction trait in the entire game. Not sure why they even added that one, but yeah, it's overall not really something you're really going to be using. But I like the premise of having an either or like this, in that you have a guarantee, you already know ahead of time what it's going to be. It's a lot more consistent than the 50-50 ones, where, you know, it could either be one or the other. In the case of this, you know exactly what it's going to be based on each condition. Really wish we would get more troops like this. Unfortunately, this one is not that useful. Anyways, as far as the event key drop table, that's probably worth going over next. So this is a pretty insane drop table this week. It is probably worth opening some keys. As far as what's in the drop table, it is every single thing in Ursuvius except for Enraged Kurandara, as well as the 4 Werewolves troops. One thing that is pretty noteworthy about this is there are 2 really particular troops that are within the drop table, and that is Kurandara and Shade of Kurandara. These are both Season 1 troops that ends up coming in through the Battle Pass thing. So if you're playing as a free-to-play player, this is pretty much the first time you've really been able to target them. Kurandara has come into Soulforge before for 4,000 diamonds, but quite a few people might have skipped on it in order to, you know, get other mythics that are a little bit more useful than it. However, this will be the first time you can use event keys for them. So if you didn't end up getting one during Season 1 of Gems of War during Campaign 1, you might want to consider opening some event keys until you get Kurandara or Shade of Kurandara. I actually did get a mythic from my drop, however, it was Doomclaw. However, 100% confirmed both of these are indeed in the drop table, so definitely worth considering. Do be mindful, though, Enraged Kurandara is not in the drop table. I might craft them this week, though, to go cover a video, since it is Ursuvius week after all. However, the only way to get Enraged Kurandara is still specifically to craft it. You will never be able to find it as a drop, so do be mindful of that. Aside from that, nothing else really too particular, other than the fact that you'd probably get the new legend upgraded. As far as the new legend, not really that interesting. Things like Queen of Tanya and such, and like almost every other AoE option in the game, pretty much better. Oddly enough, actually it's the same final trait as Venetia, which I find pretty funny as a legend, but basically just deals some damage to all enemies. It's boosted by burning and enrage allies and enemies, which is pretty interesting that it actually boosts based on a negative status effect on your team. That's actually relatively rare currently within the game. I wish they would have made his final trait a ability that would burn everything instead of just a single thing, like your allies and the enemies, basically as a risk-reward kind of thing, as it would give him a lot more boost ratio. Unfortunately, it's just a 50% chance to burn a random enemy, but it would have been really cool if it burnt like literally all 8 of them at the start of every turn. Could have made for a little bit more synergy, but overall, probably never going to really be touched. Traits are okay, though. Ends up gaining enrage when it takes damage, and it has a little bit of score reduction, which is actually relatively rare on something that hits all enemies. However, if you're really looking for a tanky option that can hit all enemies, you would normally want to use your hero class in first slot, especially given that this is a Ursuvius anyways. You could literally just run Sentinel hero class, have 40% reduction, a billion barriers, and still get half mana start off the Ursuvius bonus. So overall, not really going to be that useful, since hero is just going to be a superior option in pretty much every situation, or Queen of Tanya, or pretty much any other AoE option that exists within the game. But that's the new legend that ended up coming in as well. So regardless, you probably want to open for that. And if you have a lot of event keys, you might want to keep opening until you get Kurandara. Though do keep in mind you can accidentally get a Doomclaw like I got earlier, which will prevent you from getting the Kurandara. So it's going to be 50-50 if you do get a mythic drop as far as which one of the two it will end up being. But definitely worth investing some event keys into it this week. Anyways, aside from that, we do have a Tower of Doom event. This feels like it never happens in the current state of the game. This occurs in the current state of the game once every 11 weeks. Used to be every 4 weeks. Now it's 11. Gosh, it feels like it never happens. But basically, with this, you just want to report back the better rooms to your guild. We'll be going over it quite extensively, as we always do at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight on our stream, and kind of go over there. But basically, you just want to go report all the fireballs, all the heroisms, all the unlocked scrolls, and all the other scrolls that your guild might find useful in order to go and make sure you do as few battles as possible. You basically just want one person to scout out the entire floor so that everyone else doesn't have to do every room, so that you save sigils. Unlike something like a faction event where a faction event where you want to do every single room, this is quite the opposite, in that you actually want to do as minimal rooms as possible, only taking the viable rooms. As far as the shop, you generally always want to buy to tier 4 during a Doom event. The main reason for this is it's 500 gems, and while it is a little bit pricey compared to a standard weekly guild-related event, it is worth it for the fact that you do get a Doom weapon. Doom weapons are exceedingly expensive to get after the fact, so to be able to get one during the event is pretty good value. So definitely highly worth considering. The weapon itself is pretty useless to the point that you're never actually going to use it. All these staves that are coming in currently are. There's only really 2 really good categories, I would say, for the most part. The books and the ones that convert all of a color to Doom Skulls and then do full AoE damage, which is the absolute best one, with the books being the second best, which are generally used for Guild War defend teams. But these staves, pretty bad, but still they're Doom weapons, so you generally do want to go and get them, just because getting them after the fact is going to be so ridiculously expensive. Anyways, aside from that, we have a couple other things going on this week. This Tuesday, we have a faction for Tinkertown, which I think is the first time it's had a faction again. I'm not sure. It's either like the second or third time it has a faction event, but definitely hasn't cycled around that many times. This Wednesday, we're going to have the Ursuvius pet bonus, so you can end up getting that if you don't already have it, or getting it further upgraded. Thursday, we have a Sentinel Hero class. Sentinel Hero class, I feel like, isn't used too often. It is the tankiest hero class in the game, which obviously is a pretty good benefit. The main thing holding it back is it doesn't have a natural half mana start. You have to specifically use a Ursuvius 50% start from the kingdom in order to do it, and that troop is relatively bad, unlike some things like Divine Ishbala and a few other options that do mana starts. Some of them are pretty good, some of them aren't, and in the case of the Ursuvius ones, it's a pretty bad option, so you generally don't go down that route. If you're using this thing, you're generally using it for a very high level faction, so you don't die, or Tower of Doom, so you don't die, or really any location where speed doesn't matter and your whole goal is to not die. So very rarely used, however, it is the tankiest hero class currently within the game. And aside from that, this Friday, we have 2 things going on. One is a arena event, and unless we're getting a patch this Tuesday that buffs it, it is still very bad value to do arena event. At most, you would do it for 1 cycle to go get to the orb, and that's about as far as you'd really go. Aside from that, we are getting a new mythic, a Whitehelm mythic. It's going to have a Barrier Bless, which is going to be pretty decent. It's probably going to be mostly used for that final trait where you Barrier Bless every single extra turn. However, it also has a 20 mana cost ability that will be able to go and fill an ally's mana to full, which will obviously be pretty good with high mana cost troops like Enraged Kurandara, which is one of the reasons I actually wanted to go craft it this week, as well as any mythic that has anything, because obviously every mythic has at least a 20 mana cost, so being able to instantly fill them up with another troop could end up working out pretty well, particularly for human and divine troops, because you'll be able to 40% or 50% mana start both the new mythic that is coming as well as your mythic option that you're going to be casting. He might potentially be meta for Explore 12, but aside from that, it's mostly going to be used for its final trait. Anyways, aside from that, we got ourselves some Soulforge. As far as what's useful, this is guaranteed the first time that we have had the Kerberos available in the Soulforge. He was available for event keys like, a few months ago, somewhere around there. But this is the first time he's ever showed up in Soulforge. For the most part, probably not worth going out of your way for, but it is worth mentioning. This is basically the first time he's specifically in Soulforge, so if you didn't end up picking him up back then, and it's one of the only few things you're missing, might be worth considering. Aside from that, as far as actual good things to craft, it's mostly a toss-up between Guard's Avatar and Tina 9000, with the better option probably being Tina 9000, especially since you might be able to pick up a Whitehelm Mythic this Friday, which will make it so you don't necessarily need Guard's Avatar, or you might want to wait until after that, see if you end up getting the Mythic this Friday, and if you do, go for the Tina, and if you don't, maybe just get Guard's Avatar then, because having Whitehelm to 10 plus stars is very beneficial. Whitehelm is the best tribute kingdom in the entire game, and you should generally have it set as your home kingdom due to Pure Glory being the best tribute, and it has Pure Glory, so it's generally a good kingdom to definitely end up getting the Mythic for. Guard's Avatar is not completely useless though. You use it mostly like a Rowan. It's oddly enough, enough, even though it's a mythic. It's basically a weaker version of Rowan, which you get for free just for just completing out Forest of Thorns, of course. But you probably see me using it occasionally. Actually, I'm even going to be showing a team in a moment that ends up utilizing it. You generally use it for low-level delves in instances where you're color restricted to a point where you can't end up using a Rowan. Similar, you could also do so in Tower of Doom. However, that's a little bit less relevant for Tower of Doom, given that it happens so infrequently these days. As far as Tina 9000, the most noteworthy thing about this is it's theoretically the tankiest spell reduction troop in the game. There is one that has 75% reduction, however, it doesn't gain anything off its ability. Given that it ends up gaining a substantial amount of armor, this makes it the tankiest troop in the entire game for physical damage spell reduction. So it's pretty noteworthy in that regard. Also has a pretty high amount of true damage that in a PvP-like situation will generally end up killing per cast, and it also ends up stacking quite a bit of its armor into skull damage, which means if you use it in second slot, cast it a few times, once your first slot ends up dying, it'll pretty much be one-shotting with most of its skulls in a PvP-like situation. So overall, pretty nice utility mythic. I don't personally feel like I use it too often, however, it definitely has its purpose. The biggest issue with it, like many troops within the game, is it does end its ability, or it doesn't have any kind of extra turn potential, and this can hurt a lot of teams in that you generally want to be looping as much as possible, but still overall pretty good value. Definitely not like a first priority to craft, but definitely somewhere's within like your 10th to 20 mythic. Definitely worth considering getting somewhere's within there. But yeah, it's a toss up between either Tina 9000 or Guard's Avatar for sure. Anyways, as far as weapons, you can pretty much just skip. Definitely a skip week. This you get for free, or not for free, but for 500 gems off of Tower of Doom, so don't bother crafting it. Just get it from Tower of Doom if you're going to get it. Aside from that, most of these other weapons are pretty much just useless tier weapons. If you're going to be getting something, I guess you could get either of the 2 epic weapons in order just to get it in order to have easy weapons to go upgrade the kingdom. Aside from that, either the 2 double converty weapons or, the double gem creation weapons could be okay. However, neither of them are particularly meta at the moment. Of course, that could change into the future. However, as it currently stands, neither of them really are that particularly decent. So you can get them if you want. However, overall, pretty good week to pretty much just skip on the Soulforge weapons. Anyways, aside from that, let's go over a few teams for all the various things throughout the week. As far as from the top, we got ourselves the Brown Devour team. This you can end up using for Tower of Doom, though do keep in mind, even with Curse, you will not be able to go and devour the Doom itself. However, unlike things like Delves, where you would want to make sure nothing on your team dies, is given that the battle gets reset every single time per battle, in Tower of Doom, you can actually deliberately let your hero die. So in a team like this, we can go and mana generate a bunch, deliberately let our hero die at a very high difficulty, once you start getting to the point where they hit a lot of damage. And in your High King Iron Gut will just be able to do its really high skull damage to all the enemies, while also still being able to get the Devourer down. We have Vash Dragon here mostly as a curse option. You could do something else, but mostly just have him here for curse, which of course allows our High King Iron Gut in order to keep getting the Devourers. One of the nice thing about this is if you just have the Doom left and your hero is still alive, and it seems like it might take a little while for it to die, you can end up using this onto High King Iron Gut in order to go get boost ratio from its really high stats, since it's going to be gaining a bunch of HP and armor from its kills, which you'll be able to use for boost ratio for his boost ratio based on life. And aside from that, we kind of just have a Daughter of Ice here for a little bit of mana accumulation. It feeds both into High King Iron Gut as well as to Vash Dragon, while denying a color that we don't use on the team. And of course, it is pure brown. However, weapon can be any color. It just happens to be a brown weapon here. You don't have to use a brown weapon, but we did just choose to do so here. Similar with this one, it just works because one nice side effect of a upgraded Mountain Crusher is it does gain, for one, a Brown Storm, but also 2 mana to all brown allies. So this is pretty good for feeding brown allies below. So even though it's blocking them, it still has a way of feeding mana to them. As far as a low rarity option, this uses absolutely no legends or mythics. It's basically just a Mountain Crusher tank into a Cockatrice, which you use for utility in order to get the mana drain and tangle, stuff like that. And then you do Gargoyle as the bulk of your damage. You'd most likely want to use this with 20% into 2 seasons, or just simply go into 3 seasons just to boost up the Gargoyle's damage while also gaining a little bit of durability. And you'd pretty much just spam Gargoyle. You could go with other damage sources, of course, below. However, Gargoyle is one of the more accessible ones. You get it for throwing Chaos Shards at Hall of Guardians if you don't already have them. Pretty nice thing to run for low-level delves, as well as pretty much all of Tower of Doom if you want to. And you should be pretty much be able to get away with it. You just keep cycling Gargoyle over and over again until you end up winning, and using Cockatrice to keep them down. Anyways, as far as the faction that we got, Tinkertown this Tuesday, it is a red-yellow restriction. Here's the guard's avatar I was talking about earlier. Once again, kind of with the Mountain Crusher, we end up using it with Harpy Mage, guard's avatar, and Sir Quentin Hadley. Sir Quentin Hadley gives 50% mana start to guard's avatar because it counts as a knight, so you only need 12 mana cost, so you get it up really quickly. Team should probably be like that. You normally want to use the Harpy Mage. Well, it depends if you have enchant or not. I guess if you're not going enchant, you would want to have the Harpy Mage in front of it. However, if you are going enchant, you might want to have it the other way around. It kind of just depends. But actually, probably you would want to have the Harpy Mage for the most part below it, assuming that more often than not you will be going for the enchant. Even if you're only going for 30 gems to get the one thing, you're probably going to have enchant then. So yeah, let's just assume enchant. So yeah, we'll put the Harpy Mage behind it just to make sure it saves. There we go. It is now saved. Sometimes it doesn't like to save through the menu. It's kind of finicky sometimes. Aside from that, normal Kurandara is in the drop table this week. So if you want to go and end up getting that, it's really good synergy with High King Iron Gut. Not only does it have a curse option, which goes really well with it. However, High King Iron Gut into Kurandara covers every color in the entire game, all 6 of them. So that's pretty good synergy. And once again, Harpy Mage, actually in the right location this time. Behind the High King Iron Gut, you just get it up through enchant. You'll end up getting a nice cast off. It's basically a second turn in power because it starts with 10 out of 14 mana. It'll instantly get 2 of them, and then on the second turn, or right after the very initial turn that you end up doing, you'll end up having the full mana on it, even if you feed no mana into it. Even if it's completely blocked. So it ends up working out pretty nice within the starting enchant that you get for potions. About similar premise, you just end up getting the curse down. You High King Iron Gut literally everything. Rinse and repeat until you win. However, unlike the Tower of Doom, you do want to make sure your hero does not die. And other than that, as far as Pure Faction, a couple of different ways that you can go about it. However, given that Tink Steam Whistle is going to be the main premise here, given that you just keep resummoning. The front of your team almost doesn't matter for the most part, just because you're going to constantly keep cycling through it. If you really want to play it safe, you can go with 2 Tink Steam Whistle. However, I did find he survived perfectly fine with only 1. However, if you do want to play it safe, you might want to double up on him into like a double Smasher Bot, or however you kind of want to run it. It really just depends. But more often than not, the basic premise here is this thing is going to constantly keep resummoning the other 3, and the other 3 basically are just used to help speed up the rate at which you will end up winning, with the Smasher Bot probably being the overall best, given that it has both a decent damage amount output while also having mana accumulation. Though do be mindful, everything except the Tink Storm Whistle, Steam Whistle, will have a 15% chance of killing itself out whenever it does its ability. Also, the other troop that's not on this team is the most useless of the 3 when you're doing it through these delves, so you generally want to basically kill it out if it's accessible to try killing it out, in order to go get one of the other 2 Smasher Bots or the Destructo Bot instead. Do keep in mind, Tink Steam Whistle cannot end up summoning himself, so do be mindful of that, as if he dies, you pretty much lose the faction. But generally, he does not die. Anyways, other than that, we got the Sentinel class event going on this Thursday. As far as just running that, you can just do it with a simple use a full AoE weapon into something that feeds it mana. In this case, we're using our Skadrood because it feeds a bunch of green, and we just go with a +2 and then +4, essentially, with how it's set up then. And we just have Mech because it does a little bit extra damage when using a brown weapon, though you could, of course, use plenty of other ones, Archer, or any other number of hero classes, whatever you really want to use or what you need leveled at the moment. And as long as it has half mana start, get a half mana started, and you just cast War and Peace, and then do that either once or twice, however many you need, maybe 3 for the later battles, and you're pretty much just good to go, and ends up killing out quite nicely. Anyways, that will wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Best of luck if you're going to be opening up event keys. And as far as Tower of Doom, as I mentioned, we'll be covering it tonight, as we always do every single night, streaming here on the channel, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for watching.